Hello, good night. Welcome to Conversation with Rickford Burke. This is Rickford, of course, here in New York. Share the link, everybody. We have a very interesting show tonight. It's just about 10:08 p.m. here in New York. Same thing in the Caribbean and Guyana. Welcome to all of you in Guyana and the Caribbean as usual. Welcome to those watching from London and the rest of Europe. My friends in Africa, my friends in Asia. I know we have an audience in India. And of course, to my friends in the United States military who are in the US, who are in Germany and Japan. Share the link, everybody. If you're watching from Facebook and YouTube, ensure that you like or follow me. If you're watching from YouTube, subscribe. If you're watching from Instagram, follow me. Take some time, share the link, everybody. Call up everyone. Let them know Conversation with Rickford Burke is on. I know that some of you will be looking for me to share it into some of the groups. I'll do that shortly. I had a device issue, but we've solved it, and I'll be back in 60 seconds. Share the link. All right, welcome back to Conversation with Rickford Burke. Again, tonight we're discussing the election campaign in Guyana and some political developments. Share the link, everyone. I see you guys are doing that. I'm back here get with my device, the correct device. Everybody is set. I have three guests, distinguished guests tonight. And before I introduce them, let me acknowledge a few persons. Good night, Moses Barlow. Good night, Donna Holder, Navrin Pusod, Mary Figueroa. Good night, or Figuera, whichever one that is. Good night, Desiree Liverpool, joining from Georgia, the United States. Hello, Georgia. Mr. Figuera, watching from Montreal. Good night, good Canada. I see someone here watching from London. Good night. I missed the name. Charles Pilou, watching from Stone Mountain, Georgia. My Georgia peeps, good night. Sabrina Jacobs from Los Angeles, California, good night. Good night, Beverly Fraser. Come on, share the link, everybody. Share the link, share the link, share the link, share the link. Nigeria, hey, Nigeria in the house. Lagos, Nigeria, good night. Where else? Brooklyn. Makiba Taylor, good night. Watching from Brooklyn. Sabrina Lindy. Did I see California? Not sure. Hey, Maria. Good night, my sister. Maria Obermuller. Good night to you. Brian Small, good night, watching from St. Lucia. Here, people are watching from everywhere across the world. So far, I've seen every continent. Every continent. Sorry, except Asia. I didn't see anybody from Asia yet. Share the link, everybody. Share the link. Share the link. So, listen, tonight, we're happy to welcome three distinguished journalists from across the Caribbean region. First of all, let me introduce Mr. Enrico Woodford from Capital News Guyana. Good night, sir.
Good evening, Rickford. Thanks for asking me to join the panel.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Then we have Miss Marcia. Every Guyanese knows Marcia Weeks by now from Barbados. They're all broadcast journalists. So, Marcia, good night. Thank you for joining us.
Good night, Mr. Burke. It's my pleasure. And it's anything to do with the Caribbean and especially Guyana. I'm right here. Thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome. And Kwame McCoy's good friend, Mr. Junior George from Grenada, from right along.
Wow.
I'm joking. He's not Kwame's friend. Good night, Junior. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, no problem. Let me just preface this by saying I know you started off by saying broadcast journalist, but I want to add that I'm not a journalist. I'm more of an opinionated vlogger. I run a program called Ride Along Live, but I'm not a journalist.
Could you turn up your mic, your sound there a little bit?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
and I've been telling Mr. Burke knows I've been I'm an activist and I do a similar thing that you do, Junior. But
Yes.
he seems to keep calling me a journalist again.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But,
So definitely, we have a variety of people.
I'm too
No doubt,
opinionated.
Mr. Wilford is a journalist par excellence. Broadcast journalist. Mr. Wilford, did I get it correctly?
Definitely. I don't. I have no other hat that I'm wearing except the hats in terms of NGOs that I'm involved in.
All right. Then we have an opinionated blogger. Is that what you call yourself, Junior?
I'm a very opinionated vlogger. My perspective is mine.
And slash influencer. And then Marcia, Marcia is an activist. So, hey, that's good. Beautiful selection here. So, I want to start off by, the election campaign in Guyana is on. The fever is pitched right now. We had nomination day in Guyana on Monday, on the 14th. And I wanted to show you guys the party's contingency as they went to present their nomination lists. This is the list for members of parliament and regional democratic councils. Guyana has 10 regions, and each regional democratic council has a number proportionate to that particular regional population. So I'm going to, let me show you guys the various contingencies. So this first one, the red, that's the ruling party. You guys can see it there, pretty large contingent. So the way it works in Guyana, you will come with all your people jumping and having a carnival-like atmosphere behind you, and the leaders will go into where the nomination process is. In this case, it was in Mariana, and you have the chief elections officer there, and each party will present their lists. Now, if your list has defects, you have 2 days within which to clear that defect. So I think, was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday. Anyway, today was the last day to clear the defect. So this is the PPP. You can see there. Somebody has a question? So let's go to the next one, which I think, this is the new party. WIN, headed by billionaire Azir Muhammad. That was his contingency. Fairly large. Somehow I happen to think that his contingency was large or larger than, as large as or larger than the ruling party. And then we have the main opposition, fairly large as well. That's the opposition APNU, which is a combination of the PNC and some smaller parties. And then you have the smallest of the large parties, which would be the Alliance for Change in yellow. In yellow. So you can get an idea of the support on the ground based on the photographs. Enrico, you want to jump in here and tell us what are your What is your observation from the nomination process so far?
Well, first, as an editor, I've got to make sure that we get it right. I think you meant contingent, not contingency. Contingency
Contingent, yes,
is
contingent.
an incidental expense. So,
Enrico, Enrico, it might have been some incidental expenses there, but go ahead.
I can't help myself where that is concerned. Now, the fact that you have large contingents or small contingents or what have you, only a certain number of persons could actually go to the Ghana Elections Commission and present the list. And if you follow my post on Facebook, you'll see that I post about, I think in the early 1970s, when the leaders of the People's National Congress, Forbes Burnham, the leader of the People's Progressive Party, Chedi Jagan, the leader of the People's Democratic Movement, Llewellyn John, and the then Liberator Party with Makepeace Richmond, I think Field and Singh and those, they made the same thing. They presented their list, and it was very small contingent actually at the table. So the contingents, in terms of the massive support or how big the crowd is intended for optics purposes. To it's the same thing like a boxing match. You come in and you jump around and you come with your people and so on. So essentially, it is more for optics, more for public consumption than it is as a part of the process with regard to what the Ghana Election Commission actually needs. What they need is a list presented to them of candidates for the National Assembly and, of course, for the regional democratic councils across the 10 regions of Ghana. And Rickford and the other guests, Marcia and Junior, I used to teach Sunday school, and I always taught my Sunday school kids that there's a difference between followers and supporters. When you're sharing out things, Jesus was doing fish and bread one time, and when he was preaching, there was a feeding of the 5,000. There were at least 5,000 people there. But when you're being persecuted and you're at the cross, it's your mother, Mary Magdalene, and the others stand afar off. So it's not necessarily though that it's not until you're going through your climacteric, your important or difficult period in life, then people who are really there to support you. Otherwise, you do have a lot of followers, people who jump up with you, but will they wait for you? As one political leader once said, "Watch with me for one more hour." And I think that is what will happen on September 1st. Whether those persons who are jumping up in the band, so to speak, will watch and vote for in the hour that is needed, which is really your critical time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Enrico on the premise that crowd size don't win election. All right. It's good for optics. It's good for television. It's good to show, you have followers, but at the end of the day, the parties still have to go out and get people to go into the polls. I remember in Grenada, just last election held in Grenada, 2020, it was June 23rd, 2022, and the opposition New National Party had amazing crowd size, large crowd sizes, and they lost. So it doesn't necessarily mean that because a particular showing is there for on nomination day, you could basically say, okay, well, they have strength.
Let me put it in a little better perspective, a little differently from what Enrico, before Marcia jumps in here. So the reason why crowd size in this case on nomination day to me mattered is because Guyana has a vice president that likes to talk. He thinks he knows everything, and he thinks he's the best at everything. And one of the things that he did before nomination day is that he tried to diminish the support that the other parties had. Oh, we're the biggest party, we're the only national party, we're this, they're weak, they only got 2 people going to their meetings and so on. So I think because he did that and he tried to diminish the support for the opposition party, people actually made an effort to mobilize, to demonstrate strength. And even though it's cosmetic, it's optics, if any of those big parties had showed up there with a small crowd, they would have been written off right there. And so I think that's where the large crowd size mattered. It showed the PPP that, hey, from the other large parties, we can match you. And I think that's what they did. Marcy?
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at, how festive it seemed. Seemed quite festive, seemed quite peaceful from what I read. Both from what I saw on social media and what I read in the newspaper, and I was happy about that. That it seemed festive, seemed peaceful, and I have to say I was quite surprised at the numbers that Win had, because they're pretty new. I was really surprised at that, to be honest. I was really, really shocked about that. And it's good. I'm hoping that is saying that democracy is reigning. I do hear from Enrico is saying that at this point the crowd side doesn't matter, it's only those that are going to vote. But it really was a good showing for all of them, but I was surprised for Win.
So moving on from nomination, and I think, Marcia, you hit the hammer on the head of the nail right there, because I think the ruling party was also surprised. Even though we know the leader for Win has a lot of money, he's a billionaire, and he has a lot of resources to throw around to get the kind of campaign machinery going that a party would normally take a long time to build up. So he has created a network. He's hired people in all the regions, apparently, and he has a network and a structure going. So his campaign infrastructure seems to be in place. Now, the other issue is the list. The two large parties, I guess because of their experience or conspiracy, I don't know, their list was clear. They had no mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
The three other parties after the large parties, all of them Win, AFC, and Forward Guyana. To some extent, I think also Liberty and Justice, not Liberty and Justice, sorry, Assembly of Brooms Party, I don't remember the correct name, but the Assembly, they had mistakes. The Elections Commission wrote them and said, hey, you have mistakes on your list, you have 2 days to clear it. There seems to be some sort of sentiment on the ground that the structure of the Elections Commission doesn't lend confidence to the public anymore. Forget about the wrangling in the commission in terms of decision making. Based on the Constitution, the Elections Commission is appointed the following way. The government appoints 3, the opposition leader appoints 3, and the president appoints a chairman based on the consent of the opposition leader. So the two large parties dominate the Elections Commission. So one would think that they might want to collaborate in some sense to squeeze out the small parties. Are you hearing that on the ground, Enrico?
Well, I'm not hearing that on the ground per se, but what I know is, and this has been happening for years, where there's been concern about that arrangement. And that arrangement has to go back to, the challenges that we've always had to democracy over the years. And I think as you said, because we have not worked out a third party system in a reasonable way, then how we constitute the Guyana Elections Commission that has always been a matter of concern. And I think persons want to see a Guyana Elections Commission that is differently constituted and have persons that are not driven by the political positions of either the ruling party or the opposition at any point in time. And I think that has always been the challenge. And it needs to be corrected. But I want to say this.
Surveilling him, listening on his phone.
I want to say this, that we've had a third party over the last 70 or so years that Guyana has had universal adult suffrage. And if you're too young to remember, or you haven't checked the history books, the United Force from between 1961 and 64 was indeed a force as a third party, because you had the People's National Congress that had been formed in 1957. And I like to remind people that the People's National Congress came out of the People's Progressive Party. It was a split in 1955 between one leader in the People's Progressive Party and another leader, Teddy Jagan, on the one side and Paul Burnham on the other side. And so it really it was birthed from one party and then split into two. But the United Force was a third force, so to speak, and that party existed for a while until, in effect, it collaborated because of the leadership with the People's Progressive Party, and it died a slow death. So now you have not now. We've also had a third force with regard to the Alliance for Change over the last decade or so, or 2 decades, and now you have another party that describes itself as WIN. We invest in nationhood, and that is led by Azir Muhammad. And again, how do we make sure that all these forces, all these parties, all these entities can have a say in terms of how the Guyana Elections Commission is constituted?
I want to jump on Win, Enrico, and seeing that you're most knowledgeable with regard to that. This is a phenomenon. This young man just recently started this party. He started the party on the basis of a listening tour. The government, Vice President Jagdev and President Muhammad Ali, Irfan Ali, have accused him of running because everybody knows he has been sanctioned by the US, and the government of Guyana has taken some very strong actions against him to supposedly close down his local businesses, as he has argued. And he thinks that he's facing political victimization. He has been arrested several times and released. Every single action the government has taken against him so far, he is challenged in court, he has won. And I don't see, quite frankly, how the government could win that Lamborghini alleged tax. What's the allegation? Tax avoidance charge, evasion charge, because GRA has the power to reevaluate any vehicle that is submitted to be imported into the country. So at the point in time, GRA could have easily looked at the invoice and checked to see if it was under invoiced and levied the appropriate taxes. They didn't do that. So I'm not sure how they're going to win that case. But the government is pursuing this young man. Let's look last night, what happened when the police went to his campaign office.
Where's the arrest warrant? Yes.
a lot of police to have a discussion, just to have a word at almost midnight. Also, how do you know where he is? How do you know his whereabouts? Are you surveilling him? Listening on his phone calls? You wouldn't be able to see. It's very interesting that,
So that was the Guyana police went to his home last night. They're accusing the police of forcing their way into a private compound with no warrant. They said 3 van loads of 8 to 10 police officers were there. You saw them there. They're armed with assault rifles, like if they're going to take down the Unabomber or something like that. Today, now, this incident stemmed from one of his supporters, a gentleman by the name of Bradley Sampson, called AKA Doggy, assaulting allegedly a woman at the Square of the Revolution. You can see in the video him pulling out a gun and hitting her with it. Now, the police alleged that the young lady made a police report saying that Azir Muhammad subsequently called her and apologized to her and offered her $500,000 to settle the matter. And they are calling that obstruction of justice or the perversion of the course of justice. But we know a minister of the government that ran into somebody's car on the East Bank paid off the person to settle a criminal matter because he was drunk. We had recently a minister who was accused of rape who got the police to attempt to pay off the rape victim. So the double standard here is very much glaring. But in addition to that, let's Azir Muhammad turn himself in to the police today with his attorneys. Let us hear what he had to say before I get your comments. Let me get the video. All right, so I think we have it now.
Alleging that obstructing the course of justice.
Why are you here? Why were the police at your home last night? You're being accused of
Alleging that obstructing the course of justice. That's the charge. They came, the officers, 3 van load, came to Providence. It's a gated community. First thing is they lied to the security. They mentioned that they were going to Bikers Bar, but they ended up at my property. They bullied their way in. I wasn't there, I was up Linden. So they talked to my sister. My sister asked them, what's the problem? They said they want to talk to Azir Muhammad. That was 11:30 last night. So I contacted my attorneys and we came down here 9:30 this morning. I was arrested and for 4 hours, I was sitting here for 4 hours. I had 2 meetings to attend, one in Wakenham, over 100 persons waiting there to see me, and one in Parika. I don't know what is this. This is a clear case of political persecution. Clear case. I hope the Carter Center and all the different observers are taking note with what is going on.
There's something important we should mention. The allegation against him.
Oh, yes.
The allegation against him discloses really no known offense to law. The allegation, its length and breadth, is that he allegedly offered someone money, $500,000, to settle a grievance with a third party. Now, there is nothing nefarious about that. In fact, across the length of this country, courts would encourage parties. Y'all talk about it, y'all try to settle it. So not only is that, if it were true, frivolous, it is untrue, because we listened as the police called and called for 3 hours today. They called her phone, no answer. They went as far to go to her address. No luck. So this is a woman who the police claim gave a statement. But here she is, she's unwilling today to have a confrontation with my client. So again, we have never in the history of this country seen a government so shiveringly afraid of one man. We've seen allegations of murder being pelted. We've seen allegations of rape being heaped, allegations of drug trafficking, tax fraud, gold smuggling. I mean, there is no limit to the allegation.
Enrico, what went on there? Then later today, the police put out a statement saying this girl made all sort of allegations. It read like a Bora Nancy story. Why the government is apparently using, or it appears that the government is using the police force to fight its campaign battles?
Well, I'm not going to put a causal relationship between the government and the police force.
Right.
But as you're intimating, it is likely that is what is happening, but I have no proof, and as a journalist, I don't want to go down that road. But listen carefully to what the attorney said, and I think the attorney is spot on with regard to how sometimes cases are conducted in almost any jurisdiction. Once it is a certain level, then rather than bog the court down with issues that can be settled either by arbitration or just outside of the court, even by elders in society, then that route is normally taken. But here's the key. I have been an election observer both for the Commonwealth, and I remember I was also part of an international, I think, IFES, for electoral systems, and in Mexico, and that what we note as election observers is matters like these, where it's unclear as to why a particular person, can't get into a village, or why a particular person all of a sudden, as Guyanese would say, they've been good all the time. We tend to duplicate our adjectives. The person been good all the time, and the moment they decide to do something that will collide with some of the ruling party's objectives, then they become bad. So I think that is a challenge now, and the electorate ought to sit down and analyze this and say, why are these things happening at this time, and it didn't happen 4 years ago, 3 years ago, what have you. So clearly, once the electorate decides in their mind, the electorate makes an informed decision that something here is going on, then they could make another informed decision as to who they would like to see represent them as head of government, as head of state, and as the executive to run and manage the country. And I think that is the important point here.
You're speaking from the point of view.
Perspective.
Go ahead,
I just want to share a quick perspective here on this particular matter involving Win. I think that the ruling party have to also be careful of this, because another way to look at it is that Win could could be turned into like a political martyr, where they could use that to their advantage for popularity's sake. Because as you can see, and if they're not, they probably should be using that opportunity to push themselves forward, because it's great publicity if you look at it from that perspective. And I think that they use.
Well, of course, that's what they're doing.
Well, yeah, of course, they're speaking about it, they're talking, and they should use every opportunity to do so, because
But
they've
before,
been painted as now as a political martyr. They've been taking advantage of the David and Goliath situation here. Here is this big guy taking advantage of what they consider a third party win, and that could be good for them in the long run.
Junior, also, the Win Party has accused the police force of stopping its supporters from coming down on nomination day, 1,000 of them. And I'm coming to other opposition parties, but I just wanted to highlight this. From coming from Linden, and they used the police again to stop these buses, 80 buses, coming from Linden, because they said they're going to clog up the city. Do you find anywhere else in the Caribbean anything like that happening, where the government is using the police force to basically obstruct their political opponents?
Well, if that is the case, and that's what's happening, that should not happen. You don't see in our region, you don't really see that happening. You hear of stories like that in places like Russia, these type of territories, but not in our region. If that is the case, then that should not happen. But again, I think WIN should take every opportunity to talk about this. Every time they get to a camera, every time they have an opportunity for an interview, speak about this. They have a platform now where they are, as I said, they're tainted as a political martyr, and ultimately, I think that's good for them down the road.
I want to come back. I'll come back to the Guyana Police Force just now. Enrico, I see that we've lost Marcia. I guess she's trying to come back. You had a situation where the other opposition parties are complaining about the conduct of the Guyana Elections Commission, where the Elections Commission clearly discriminated against the smaller parties by telling them, we don't have to give you a list. We can only give the big parties a voters list. You're not entitled to a list because you're too small. Isn't that nonsense? Isn't that discrimination? And in your observations as election observer around the world, have you ever seen anything like that?
Well, I can't speak to that specifically because I don't remember cases like that coming up. But the Guyana Elections Commission made a decision that it would give hard copies to the two major parties, the People's Progressive Party and the Partnership for National Unity, or a Partnership for National Unity. That's why it's called APNU. Hard copies, and the other parties could then go and use the soft copy method. And the good thing about elections is that the more you complain, as Judy just said, the more you have, you're projecting an image where you're seen as an underdog, and people tend to relate to you. And again, this is a fight, just not just for the hearts and minds and the votes of people, but access to power, access to the purse, access to spending, access to moving money, from one place to another. And I always remember Carl Greenidge would say that money doesn't fall off the face of the earth, it goes somewhere else, but it doesn't fall off. So at the end of the day, it's about where particularly ruling parties take a position that if you're not for me, you're against me, and we will give no court and take no court and that kind of fighting talk. But essentially, they're fighting because they want to have access to power. They will tell you all sorts of things that no, we are really concerned about you, we are very concerned about you, and so on. But essentially, the electorate must decide whether the persons who are presenting themselves are really grounded, as Walter Rodney used to say, grounded with the brethren. You know, you have whether they're concerned about you, whether they're concerned about your living conditions, whether they are concerned about where you want to go. And particularly at this time, what also happens is that people, you were talking about the vice president who is leader of the list for the People's Progressive Party, you know, and the general secretary. He's the leader of the party, so he holds three major hats.
He's the whole party,
right? But the fact that he is allowed to set the agenda and to present the narrative. Well, let's see how many of you come with, you know, with a massive crowd. Let's see what happens over here. This person can string sentences together. The fact that you can string sentences together, and as you as to paraphrase Shakespeare, that you know you're full of sound and fury and signifying nothing, doesn't mean that you know how to lead, and doesn't mean you don't know you don't know how to manage an economy, manage a country. So the idea that somebody there sets the agenda, and my concern is that the public must see this, must understand this, and must make an informed decision based on, why is this person so interested in are they really interested in me, or are they interested in ensuring that they stay where they are and they are getting what they want for themselves and probably for people they know, and how their group could benefit. And I think that is a major concern, particularly in Guyana.
Yeah, I want to come back to, we lost Marcia, as I said, but I want to come back to the police.
Rickford, can I just make a quick point here?
Go ahead, Junior, go ahead. Junior, could you turn up your volume? I'm not hearing you. I didn't even hear your interjection just now.
My mic is actually all the way up.
Okay, good. I'm hearing you now. Go ahead.
Are you hearing me properly? Sorry, I don't know if I need to go closer into the mic. But what I want to say, Rickford, is that I want to take a regional perspective look at this, right? Because, you know, a lot of times we say in our region that third parties are just there just to possibly exist, but not necessarily have any intention or possibilities of winning anything, right? And certainly from where I'm from, Grenada, we saw a uprising of two third parties. We'll talk about that. But if we look at from Antigua perspective, the last election held in Antigua, it wasn't a third party, but it was a Azir Michael who ran as a independent, right? He had this kind of same David and Goliath thing where, well, Azir Michael was no David, but still he was able to win that particular seat. The late Azir Michael, he later died a few months ago, but he was able as a third party where everyone is saying third parties or a third candidate cannot win in our region. He was able to prove that. Now let's look from Grenada perspective. The last election held in Grenada was 2022. So the next constitutional election is not due until 2027. And already we are seeing 3 additional new political parties form in our region. And people are looking at the Azir Michael thing because one of the popular candidates in Grenada, Peter David, people are looking at him as he could possibly do exactly what Azir Michael did in Antigua. So what I'm saying is that no win has a platform from where they could speak from. It's just having that opportunity from where they could always come to the media and speak about this. They basically set up in a prime position to actually get the agenda and speak, because people know will listen to them because of the David and Goliath situation.
Before I go back to the police force, the issue people have with Win, I myself have that issue. As a matter of fact, I wrote about it. And subsequently, some of the concerns I raised, we heard people, journalists pose to Mr. Muhammad on nomination day, is that so far they have not articulated a policy position. They haven't released a manifesto. It's now, what, 48 days to the election. They say they'll release one shortly. But Enrico, what's your view? What people are, this is a movement that Azir Muhammad has cleverly created, but there's a vacuum. People don't know what he believes in. People just know that he's seen as a successful businessman. The United States government and now the PUP would have some questions about how he became successful, but they don't know how is he going to manage this economy. How is he going to create a better education system? How is he going to create a healthcare system that is first world, that can save lives of the people all across the country? How is he going to develop sports? How is he going to manage the oil economy or the oil and gas sector? How is he going to manage the border controversy? There's no policy position that you can ascribe to him. How does he expect to go forward in this campaign? Or is just going, as I say, bluff his way? And Gordon asked him, is he just going to bluff his way to the presidency, like a very famous president we know of?
And your last line, your last few words tend to support exactly where you are going. The fact is that at this stage, how many people you know spend time sitting down and analyzing a manifesto and say, I vote for John Fredericks because he promised, to ensure that the flag is never disrespected, and I have a problem with the disrespecting of the flag. Or I voted for Jackie Ali because she removed taxes on AC units, and I want to make sure that I'm comfortable in my environment. I think once you are running for something, the first thing you have to do is to attract people to your position, to your image. And again, it goes back to what we've been talking about. The fact that we are also talking, we spent nearly 20 or 30 or 25 minutes talking about the guy.
That's a win.
It makes the point that you're trying to negate.
Yeah.
The fact that we're still talking about them.
And also, let me make this quick point here, that I think that the bar was set so low. The bar was set so low, right? You just have to do a little better than expected. And it's a win. It's a victory. And Enrico, to your point, the fact that we spent, good 10, 15 minutes speaking about it, that's another win for win. Yeah. And I think what they should do right now is to use this opportunity. The fact that media and folks like myself and media heads are speaking about it, use that opportunity to produce a manifesto, to let people know what you're going to do with all of these sectors. Your plans is a perfect opportunity. And I think any successful businessman probably thinking about that right now. In the short order, a manifesto may just roll out that showcase all his plans and what he planned to do. And also I want to add this. A third party don't necessarily have to win. They just have to upset. They just have to make a major upset. And again, the bar is set so low. And that's a win. That's a victory.
I want to come back to the police.
No, but if I could come in here,
Sure, go right ahead.
I had an interview today with the presidential candidate for APNU and the prime ministerial candidate for APNU. And they were very clear on their policy positions, the prime ministerial candidate, for example, Director of Finance, talked about carbon credits and what needs to be done, that right now the indigenous communities are only getting 15%. She and her party believe that it ought to be at least 50%. The presidential candidate spoke about the biodiversity conference that is coming up next week in Guyana, and what Guyana needs to get, and how Guyana has not been able to use its biodiversity to benefit, to bring benefits for the country at an international level, and at a national level going back to 1992 when we had the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, right? No. Do you think while all of that is going on, people are going to say, yes, let's listen to APNU and hear what they have to say. Let's listen to the PPP and hear what they have to say with regard to the same topics. And I think what needs to be said and what needs to be done, those two things must allow the parties running up for the election on September 1st to put forward all of their proposals, all of their plans and projects, and the alliteration is not deliberate. So one must be informed, therefore, to make an informed decision when you get to the polling station in September. The other thing I want to raise is that, to me, just looking at elections, studying international relations, observing elections over the years, is that elections are won in the registration process. You gotta have voters registered, and in the footwork that you do to make sure that the voters turn out on election day. And I think, Rickford, you've been close to a particular president and party who used both the internet and boots on the ground to disrupt and upset an electoral system in the mighty United States. So you gotta do the footwork. You've got to be working almost all the time if you are to be a mighty political party.
Point taken. And what I plan to do is periodically, as we go through the campaign and in the lead up to the elections, I want to assemble this panel back for us to keep analyzing the various developments of the campaign and how the election campaign is progressing. But I want to switch to the police again on two issues before we close. Recently, we see the police went and arrested a businessman in Guyana, accused him of killing someone in Suriname, and then drove him to the border and handed him over to Suriname police, which is completely against the Guyana constitution, completely against international law. You can't move somebody from jurisdiction to jurisdiction like that. And then second, we have this, and take me out of this picture. I just think this is a major ruling where you had the Guyana police force took political instructions from the government to charge me with a crime and send the police officer all the way across the continent to my house to threaten me with a gun and to allegedly drop some sort of court summons at my doorstep. I'm going to play a video with a report from Gordon Mosley and come back to this because it bothers me that the rest of the Caribbean, and particularly CARICOM and the ABC countries, allowed this PPP government to use the Guyana police force as their political tool against the population and against their political enemies. Let's roll this tape and we'll be back on the other side of it.
June in the year 2025. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting, and here is what we're tracking tonight. Acting Chief Justice Roxanne George, in a major ruling this morning, declared that a charge of criminal libel is unconstitutional, as she dismissed a charge that had been filed by the police against overseas-based Guyanese human rights and political activist Rickford Burke. The acting Chief Justice also ruled that a move by the police to have one of its officers travel to the U.S. to serve a summons on Mr. Burke was unlawful. On the charge of defamatory libel, Justice George said she has concluded that Section 113 of the Criminal Offences Act, Chapter 801, is unconstitutional, as being in violation of Article 146, which guarantees freedom of expression. The judge told the court that a threat of state action through criminal law amounts to overreach and does not fall within the exceptions to Article 146, which guarantees freedom of expression. Acting Chief Justice George said if someone feels aggrieved by what has been said about them, they may file a civil suit, and it should not be for the state through any law enforcement arm to charge persons for criminal defamation. She said in the particular case against Mr. Burke, the charges are vague, as they do not specify what exactly are the defamatory libel that were published. She said it is not enough on a criminal charge to simply say that someone has been libeled, explaining that an accused must know precisely what are the words allegedly used by him or her that led to the charge. The acting Chief Justice said the charges do not disclose what is the alleged defamatory language stated, and the summons that was produced by police officer Sarabo did not refer to Section 33. She said it remains a mystery what laws were being used to file the charges against Burke. The judge also questioned how it is that Burke was being accused of a crime at Lusignan in Guyana when he has been living in the U.S. for 27 years and has never returned. She said it is evident that the prosecution did not disclose to the magistrate that Mr. Burke was not in Guyana and could not have been at Lusignan as stated in the charge because he resides overseas and had been so for many years without having returned. Justice George said if that was disclosed to the magistrate, then she most likely would have declined to have issued a summons under her hand against Mr. Burke. The judge also said the service of the summons on Mr. Burke in the U.S. was unlawful, since the summons would only have efficacy within the geographical boundaries of Guyana. She says service of a summons outside of the jurisdiction of Guyana means that such service would be unlawful and therefore invalid. Justice George concluded that the proposed service of the summons was not established, and in any event, it was unlawful. She queried whether advice was even sought from the Director of Public Prosecutions on the issue and the charges against Burke. The acting Chief Justice awarded costs for the applicant in the matter, Rickford Burke, in the sum of $500,000 from each of the named respondents. The police had filed a charge against the activist Rickford Burke following a complaint from the owner of BM Soot Auto Sales, Azir Muhammad, about statements that Burke allegedly carried on his social media page from disgruntled customers of the car dealership. Mr.
Enrico, and I'll come to Junior after this. Here you have the court ruling that about 5 crimes were committed by the police. Everything they did in this matter was illegal because they were instructed by Barajak, the members of the government, to attack me because they wanted to silence me. And nothing happened. No condemnation from any organization, no rebuke from the international community, no rebuke from the ABC countries. Do you think that there is a bias against people like us who are in the opposition by CARICOM, other Caribbean governments, and the ABC countries, that they allow the government to get away with these unlawful conduct because they feel that the government should run Guyana, the PPP should run Guyana? That's my view. Do you agree with that?
Well, you're putting me here on a spot, and I said that I am a journalist. I will speak as a journalist. I'm not going to go into the
What's your
arena.
analysis of the conduct of the police here in relation to how the court ruled?
What if you were to ask me, uh, how the police behave, that is indeed a, a matter of concern, and we've got to straighten out the image of the Guyana Police Force. Not only did they do that kind of thing, and think they could get away with it. We saw that the issues with Adriana Young. We saw other releases going out where they would say things that are patently incorrect, patently wrong, and then try to correct it. Guyana has sort of legitimized. People believe that they have a legitimate right to be and do wrong. Now, while that was going on, I was going back into the search engines. I remember the IPI, the International Press Institute, came to Guyana, and I think Anil Nandalal was the Attorney General with regard to criminal defamation and making sure that that law is repealed. And he'll agree that it should not be on the law books. But yet, we go using the same law. Mark Benchcott will tell you that one time he had to bring some people to a protest, and they were in the tray of a vehicle. All of a sudden, the police found a reason to say that you're not supposed to transport people in the tray of a vehicle. And if you drive around Guyana, people are in the tray of a vehicle all the time. It's dangerous, but they do it. But the police decide, pick and choose what law. And the other aspect of it is how the narrative becomes dishonest. There's one politician who crossed the floor, basically, and is now lauding the fact that Guyana has free university education. Since I was in high school, as I was telling one of my staff only this week, I never paid for university. I never paid for university education. I didn't even pay for high school education. My eldest brother, God bless his soul, his during his time, he had to pay, but Guyana has had free education from nursery to university since the mid-70s. It is the very ruling party that stopped the free education, then bring it back as if
it's a new concept, new policy.
That is something that has been done. And that has been happening. They're going to vex with me for saying that. But, this happens to be the truth. And how things are couched, 3 people die in an area and it becomes a massacre, it trivializes the word to the point that it makes people think, why would somebody say that? In talking to my staff at Capital News over the years, I would always tell them that one of my professors at Syracuse University, and I like to big up Syracuse, always said the intent of the communication is more important than the communication itself.
Yeah. Rick, let me share my opinion on your case there, which is I went through some of the regional cases as it relates to criminal libel. And in almost all, besides Barbados, Jamaica, Barbados was repealed back in 2002, criminal libel. Jamaica repealed back in 2013. Bahamas decriminalized libel in 2013 as well. Grenada, it's still on the books, but it's very rarely used. So I believe that in your case, if the government feel or any person in public life feel aggrieved of your conduct on a platform or something that you said, I agree with the court that they should sue you in court, right? But I don't see the criminal charges. I don't see why the criminal charges. And
But hold on. But remember what the Chief Justice said. The Chief Justice in our ruling said one, there was no description of a crime. The
Right.
charges had no crime. Then she said she does not know what laws they use to file these charges.
Right. But they
Right?
also said if they felt aggrieved, then they should take you to it's not criminal court. It shouldn't be criminal process.
But there was nothing for the government to be aggrieved of. What we have to understand is what it is. The Attorney General, and I'm boldly saying it because I know, and we have documents to prove it. The Attorney General, Vice President Barjack, the police commissioner, got together with the owner of this dealership that I criticized and told him to go file these charges and make certain types of allegations so that Barjack, they could go up every week and say Burke is a criminal and communicate that to the United States government. Second, the Attorney General of Guyana wrote a letter to the U.S. Attorney General in which nothing he said was true. I mean, we had as a result of what happened September 6th, 2020 here, we had about 9 attorneys who made false statements in correspondences and directly to the court who were disbarred. And you had the Attorney General of Guyana writing officially to the United States government lying. That's number one. The Chief Justice in our ruling said they lied to the court. They lied to her. They lied to the magistrate. They told the magistrate, I came to Guyana and committed a crime.
Right.
And they'd made up everything they made up. But the fact of the matter, the Chief Justice said in our ruling, no law was stated in the charge. So they just wrote up a charge and said, okay, he violated criminal libel and in the attempt to extort because they said pay back the people their money. But no law was cited. There's nothing that they cited except in one vague case where they said generally under the construct of criminal libel. And that's why she struck down the whole law. But my whole thing is that you have the Supreme Court of Guyana reprimanding the police force for lying to the court. And nobody was charged with perverting the courts of justice. But they go on and run behind Muhammad and claim because he had allegedly had a conversation with somebody, which he denied, and which the person is now apparently denying. They want to charge him or have charged him with perverting the court of justice when 2 police officers lied to the court. And the Attorney General went to the Chief Justice in the Supreme Court and lied to her. And nothing happens.
Yeah. But
No condemnation from the Caribbean, no condemnation from CARICOM, nothing from ABC countries. They allowed the Guyana police force to keep doing that. Let's fast forward to this latest case. They went, and today I noticed Attorney Dexter Todd had a press conference talking about this. And somebody in Suriname told me about it as well. They went and arrested a businessman, accused him of murdering somebody, and according to him, allegedly stole over 15,000 US from him, drove him to the border, and handed him over to somebody in Suriname who claims that they're police officers. Now, if they could do that to him, they could do it to Enrico, they could do it to anybody. And up to now, there's no outrage from no organization, no international representative from any human rights bodies, nothing. We allow these people in Guyana to get away with literal murder, lying to the courts, violating international law, and violating the Guyana Constitution. Enrico.
Look, again, the issue here is how we cherry pick things, you know? You're mentioning your case, Rickford. I didn't want to go this route, but I was CEO of NCN. I left NCN just before the election results were declared, and I came up to the United States. I came over to the United States right? Without collecting my final salary and benefits and so on. I had to go to court to get my salary and benefits. The state operation argued that I never worked. The judge found that fanciful, to use the word that she used. Would you believe that after I collected the benefits, which is a small sum, in fact, my colleagues in the Caribbean were joking with me as chairman of the state and CEO of the state broadcast, is that kind of little bit of money with all the experience you have, you were collecting, collected the money. Guess what? The state entity appealed and is going all the way to the appeal court and probably to the CCJ. Now, my question is, who's really benefiting from this? You know, you have to pay the attorneys if they're appealing. You know, are you going to pay the attorneys more than the benefits that you had to pay out?
Right.
It's setting a precedent. That's important. You know, that's important.
No, it's not setting a precedent, Junior. It is because Enrico looks the way he looks. Listen, I don't know why we sugarcoat it.
No,
This government does not believe that certain people should benefit from state funds. People that look like me, people that look like you, people that look like Enrico, they don't believe you should benefit from state funds. They rather spend 20 million Guyana dollars to go to court to block Enrico from getting $1 million because of how Enrico looks and how they believe he thinks politically.
But wait, I don't look nice?
No, Enrico, you look nice. That's
thank you.
Enrico, you look nice. No problem. What I'm saying is, I believe what any administration would try to do in that particular case here is to set a precedence. Because you would spend, why would you spend $10 million to defend $1 million? So you want to stamp your authority that the next would-be person wouldn't go to that same road because of
no, Junior, that's not it.
Well, no,
they've done that with every single black person who the government had to pay that came from a different party. Okay. I'm saying that unequivocally. That's what happens. They don't believe that African Guyanese must benefit from emoluments from the state. That's just factual. They fired every black ambassador.
You've gone down the ethnic route as you usually do. But I also believe it's important for Guyana to disaggregate its data. And just as how you notice even in the United States, there is an attempt not to do that anymore, to say how many people of this descent or how many people of a certain income bracket how many persons of a certain gender are affected by decisions. And then you could make informed decisions because you have scientific data to work with. But the challenge has always been that unless you are for us, then you are against us. There was one time I remember talking about the need to have a proper frequency management and ensuring that we have systems in place that radio stations, television stations do not interfere with each other, and now we have cell phones and what have you in terms of congestion. But the only persons who were asked or persons who were aligned to the ruling party at the time, and I made the point that persons who also know about the electromagnetic spectrum are perceived to be on the wrong side of the political spectrum, so they don't have a voice. And it is even happening in non-contentious areas, in areas like the arts and what have you, from time to time. But how would we be able to prove that? We've got to disaggregate the data. If you want me to go down the road, and again, I'm speaking as a journalist, we have to disaggregate data and say, well, did we do enough for the people of an income in an area, let's say a squatting area or a depressed area? What was done for these areas? You just can't come in and say I give 6 or 7 contracts, and then all you did was to split $1 million into 6 or 7, and the narrative is, well, everybody get a blight, because the Guyana should not be BG, a blight country, a blight Guyana. It should be beautiful Guyana, but not a blight Guyana.
Enrico, I agree with you, but I want to differ a little bit, because we've done a lot of research in terms of, for instance, I don't know anybody else who has been denied salaries throughout the years of the PPP governance, starting from 1993 right through to now. I can't point to any person within the government structure who is non-Black that the government refused to pay. You have several Afro-Guyanese ambassadors that they fired and refused to pay. They had to go through the same process, and they appealed it. Now, we were talking about data. Let me show you some data, because this is something that perturbs me, and I speak about it a lot, yes, because I think it is a problem in the country. And I live in a society where we talk about it. In Guyana, the government makes it difficult for you to talk about it because they call you racist. Now, let's look at the CEOs of government agencies right in front of us there, right? This is the chairman of the Demerara Harbor Bridge. We have the chairman of the Chedijagan International Airport. We have the chairman of the Guyana Revenue Authority, chairman of the Guyana Tourism Authority, chairman of the CEO of the Guyana Water Authority, head of CANU, Customs and Anti-Narcotics Unit. We have the chairman of the National Tender Board. We have the controller of customs. We have the head of the Inland Revenue Department. We have the chairman of Guyana Power and Light. We have the CEO of Go Invest, National Bureau of Standards Executive Director. That's just one, right? That's just one set. Let's go to the other page. Bear with me here. I did something wrong.
Now we see all your business.
Yeah,
That's all right. Those are things that were posted on Facebook anyway. We continue, right? The Guyana Environmental Protection Agency Director, National Data Management Director, Chairman of the Georgetown Hospital, National Insurance Scheme Chairman, CEO of the Guyana Energy Authority, CEO of the National Agriculture Research Extension Institute, General Manager of the Mahaika Maikonia Barri Agriculture Development Project. And there's another, on and on and on. There are 4 Afro-Guyanese who are chairmen of government corporations of Guyana. Only 4 out of 38. How do you, oh, sorry, we have more. We have chairman of the Guyana Marketing Corporation, chairman of the National Communication Network, which reports that replaced Enrico. We have, well, Flour Mill is a mixed private-public entity. Guyana Rice Development Board, general manager. We have general manager for the Guyana National Newspapers Limited. We have the commissioner for the Lands and Surveys Department. We have the chairman of Guyana Gold Board, who's also the governor of the Central Bank of Guyana. And then we have the commissioner of the Guyana Forestry Commission. I mean, how can you run away from the fact that this is a government that governs by prejudices? Junior?
Well, Rickford,
that's hard data.
You know that I am not from Guyana, so I'm not going to pretend that I know all these names and I know all the intricacies and the small working components of what's happening there. But I'll say this, right? In order for me to make a a commentary on that, I would have to look at that versus what it was when the APNU was in power. I'll have to contrast that and see. Then I could make an educated, opinionated piece on that. Because
No, that's a comparison. That's a comparison. What
Right.
I'm looking at is the appointments, the government appointments, as opposed to what the population looks like. But I understand what you're saying. You're making a comparison.
Yeah, I would need to do that because again, you see, you and Enrico, of course, and yourself, very educated in terms of the running and the operation there. I would do my own research to see what it was in the last administration, to see how it was, how it played off. And then I'll be able to revert and comment on that.
All right, as we wrap up, Enrico, last comments.
Yeah, I think getting back to the electoral system and how the country ought to be managed and run as a result of the decision by the electorate. I think I as a journalist, I just want to remind persons that this is the period that you get to decide whether you want to hire somebody new to run the society, run the affairs for you, or and you want to fire the person who might be there, or you want to rehire that person. And the only way you could do that is if you are basing it on informed decision making, and you must have information. You must have truthful information, not just information, factual information and truthful information, if I can take it to the next level, to make those decisions. But unfortunately, and again, Vice President Barrett Jagdeo is talking, and I don't think he probably realized what he said when he said that we are not worried about this third party, meaning win, or he may have said it directly, because they are taking Norton's vote, meaning the APNU's vote.
Yeah, what is that? What does he mean? How does he know?
How does he know who would vote for Norton APNU? How does he know? Is it where they're living, what they look like, what kind of vehicle they're driving on, what their income level is? Or does he have a political intelligence mechanism that tells him that these people that are that were with Mr. Muhammad, if you could go back to that discussion, were APNU supporters? But we all skirt around it. But perhaps we just look at people and we make a decision in our head that
that's precisely what he did.
That those people, based on the genetic outcome, on what their great-grandmother, who their great-grandmother decided to partner with, they have come down on the genetic line that puts them in favor because they look like somebody who we like, And I'm saying, had my great-grandmother, when she stepped off the boat from my mother's side in 1896 from India, if she had made different decisions, probably I would have still be chairman of NCN.
I would say this, right? My grandfather is a Portuguese man who was also a PPP member of parliament. Then he came over and became a PNC minister of the government. But the thing about it is that Barrett Jagdeo, and you're so right, Barrett Jagdeo looked at those people, and to him, he seen most likely black people, and he said, hey, that's not our supporters, that's APNU. That's a fact. And I know you have to be objective as journalists, but I don't have to be objective. I got to call it as I see it. Barrett Jagdeo is a racist, and he said black people supported the man, we ain't care about that. Anyway, go ahead, Junior.
Yeah, in Grenada, because I'm on the political spectrum, a lot of times when we look at, especially young people, and in Grenada and other territories as well, we usually look at young people and say, you know, these are young people, they would go this particular way. And these are elderly people, they would go this way. So this is just a comparison to what's happened in my territory in Grenada versus what's happening in Guyana. And in closing report, I just want to say, you know, we spoke about win, and I think that this conversation here, we spent 15, 20 minutes speaking about win, is a win for win. It's opportunity because the goal was set so low for them, so they're doing better than expected right now. But we haven't said anything about the AFC or Forward Guyana or the Assembly Party, which means that they're probably not doing something. Somebody needs to speak about them.
No, we'll get to them. Like I said, every night when we're on, we'll choose a specific day of the week when we will analyze each party. Tonight was win. We look at the ruling party, we look at the APNU and the other parties as we go along towards the election.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, today was a really nice education for me. I love Guyana. I've been there about 4 times, and I'm looking forward to go back. I've been invited so many times to come back to Guyana. I didn't have an opportunity.
Don't forget, Kwame said he would pay your hotel bill, your food, and your flight to go to Guyana. You're still to take up Kwame's offer.
I could pay my bills. Let's put it like that, right? As I told Kwame, I could pay my bills.
And Kwame said you could stay by his house.
No. I could pay my bills. All right. And in time, I'm gonna pick my family up. I'm gonna go to Guyana and I'm gonna enjoy it because I love Guyana. I've been there a couple times and it's absolutely amazing. I have some great friends from Guyana who are my loyal friend day one from years. So I just want to say that, you know, for the folks that's watching from Guyana, I just want to say that I know something about Guyanese that gravitates me, right? One of my best friends going to high school was a Guyanese. Neil, if you're watching. So I want to go back there. Kwame don't have to pay my bills. Kwame don't have to pay my ticket. The political party, the political infrastructure don't have to give me anything. I'm going to go there on my own accord and enjoy the place as I always do. All right.
And Kwame said, I will pay everything for you. You can even stay by me.
No,
anyway,
that's okay. That's okay.
I hope to that. I go on out to the young people.
Yeah, stay out of that, boy.
Good night, guys. Thanks.
All right, no problem. No problem.
Junior, I know you're going to come here because you have this. All right. Let them know you want your day one friend. I want your day one friend.
Day one.
All right, good night, everybody. Thanks for joining. See you again on Sunday for another edition of Conversation with Rickford Burke. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, thank you.